Osta, Shohin Yeyi Chla, do you call the E? Ayashti, Ganayegi, Dagwatoa. Welcome to the Red Road East. I'm your host, Fierce Truth Seeker. Today, we're going to take a trip all the way to Matinecock, New York. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Okay, we're back. And now I will introduce my guest, and we'll be joined with Chief Reggie, Dances with Medicine, Caesar of the Matinecock Nation. Chill, my brother.
Hey. Osio, Akwe, Gwingwanao, Nindashizi Kikai Reggie, Ninunjiaye, Mitenakak wa Siwanahaki, Na Walotman Wundak Kwe. I am Chief Reggie, chief of the Cherokee clan of the Matinecock people of Long Island. They call Siwanahaki or Long Island. It's great to meet everyone.
Great, great. So, um, for the viewers, explain to them who the Matinecock people are, where they are from, and who you are in terms of your position in the nation, etc.
Okay. Well, quite a mouthful there. Um, I will tell you something that the truth as we know it, um, we are all Algonquin people. Okay. All of us on Long Island. The Matinecock were the people, means the people of the rolling hill. Our families reach from actually a small piece of Socrates Park in Long Island City. It was a tribe there that became part of our big family. And then also from Newtown Creek out to Smithtown. When they refer to like the Matinecocks, the Montauks, the Canarsies, and all those 13 tribes, reality is that we're one family, and that's the location that we lived at. So when the Europeans came, they referred to like where you're living, not the fact that we all are one family. We're the family of the Matinecocks. If that makes sense to you, because it was
Yep.
a whole different way of looking at things.
Yeah. And recently, within the past few years, there was a renaming of Northern Boulevard in
Mm.
Queens. As a matter of fact, if the technicians can pull up that slide that says Matinecock Way, that would be great, and we could see the image of the street. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about that and the renaming of Northern Boulevard for us, Chief.
Okay. Well, some of the history about Northern Boulevard, and it gets personal on a real personal basis, and you'll see why. The Algonquin family that was referred to as the Matinecock, right? All
Mm-hmm.
our relatives. We lived along Northern Boulevard, or what you call Northern Boulevard now. Um, and my particular family was had a chunk of land along Northern Boulevard where the family house was, and there was another piece of land there. And our relatives down the road were the Davises. They lived there. So there were different families that lived along this road called Northern Boulevard. Um, and And on a personal level, so Northern Boulevard, as you know now, people that go in New York, is like 4 lanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a horse and buggy road
Mm.
when I was a kid. Okay, so 2 lanes at most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A horse and buggy, because there were no 4 lane highways. So where do you think they got the rest of that land from? I can tell you where they got a piece of it from.
Mm.
Um, I was living in I moved from East Elmhurst into the projects in Long Island City, and my mother came. They had a big meeting, and my mother came back and just said they gave me $75. They threw $75, and they said we're widening the highway. Take it or leave it.
Mm.
And I had my mother and her 2 brothers and my great uncle, who was the chief of our clan. And they just basically threw the money at them, and they said, "Sign the paper, don't sign the paper. We don't care. Eminent domain. We're gonna widen the highway."
Mm.
So, keeping that in mind as you go now, you go to like the future. A lot of the politicians and people realizing what they did by widening and taking and cutting off pieces of our land was more than not right. And there was still family. I think we still have some families that live along and around Northern Boulevard, which was like came through our land. Um, so I think it was Councilman Valone was one of the people that were really helpful and renaming. So at least they would remember that we were the people that were there. And in the picture, I think you'll be showing, you'll see that it's our cousin Chief Harry Wallace of the Unkechuck Nation. It's Davis. He is a direct blood cousin of mine. And Chief Osceola, our principal chief, he was there. And we got the support of Roberto Barillo Mucro.
Right. I
As
see
I
him there in
know,
the picture on the right. Yeah.
yeah. So Mucro, we're all the same people. We're all the people of this continent. So the Tainos have been very helpful and support us, and we support them when we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
below is the younger picture of Chief, 2 younger pictures of Chief Osceola Townsend. He is our principal chief.
okay. Right. And that's
Yeah.
your cousin, right?
He actually is a blood cousin. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Right. And so is Harry Wallace,
And so is Harry
on
Wallace.
the far left. Now
Yeah.
he's Puspatuk. How does that fit in with the Matinecocks?
Ah, so here's the whole, like I said, the truth of the whole matter
You
here.
know why I'm asking you that.
Yeah.
But
We're
for the
all,
viewers,
yeah, we're all one people. And it would be akin to somebody saying, "Oh, Jamaica Estates, how you doing today?" Or "Brooklyn, how are you?" And we would look at them like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you're Brooklyn, aren't you?" Says, "No, I have a name. At most, we're the people that live in Brooklyn, or
exactly.
we're the people that live on the Stony Shore. But we have a name, and we're all one people."
Right. Like you said when we were talking the other day, they called us by our addresses and not by our names.
Yeah, you
Oh
know.
man. Wow.
So that's a whole one of the many. There were different cultures and there were different societies that were mixing here, and all cultures had a piece of the pie. But the thing is, some people um, had to give you a piece of the pie if you came into their house because that was their way.
Hmm.
And some places made you ask for a piece of the pie, and places, even if you ask for a piece of the pie, they're not giving you a piece of the pie. And so the indigenous cultures, by and by, if they have a pie, it was our responsibility to offer a guest a piece of pie
Hmm.
to
Exactly.
show them that we truly all are one family.
Exactly.
And a lot of the indigenous people, they say, a lot of the families say, "Welcome home" when you come to visit them. Right? You've heard that before, right?
Yeah. Oh, they're giving us the signal that it's time to take a break. And I
Yeah.
think when you come back, we're gonna be doing a performance. You're gonna be doing a performance for us.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. And stay tuned, viewers. Chief Reggie's gonna throw down with some indigenous flute. So we'll be right back.
You care for the house, the kids, and our future. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's save a little more now so we can create the retirement we want. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need. Visit asiaretirement.org.
Okay.
Okay, we're
So,
back, and we have Chief Reggie who's gonna throw
okay.
down with some nice flute playing. So, Chief, you have 10 minutes to do your thing, to play and explain to us some of the history behind that wonderful instrument that you're going to consecrate this space with.
Okay. Thank you, Tabatni. Um, so I have two flutes here. I'm going to show them both because they're like little kids. They get jealous if I don't at least show them both. And I get a feeling I want to take and play the drone flute for you today. This is two voices that come in one.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful.
So that
Wow.
that flute there, that's the drone flute,
Okay.
and so I won't get my other flute won't be mad. I'll just play a couple of tunes off of here. Actually, I'll
Okay.
play something you might hear in the morning time.
Mm.
Mm,
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wow.
thank you.
So I know.
So they won't be bad.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So, uh, give us a little bit of background about the flutes, and
Oh
I
boy.
know the other day you were telling me a whole lot of history and
There's
some
a
things.
lot of stories about the flute. Um, so there are two ways people refer to the flute as the courting flute, and then they refer to the Native American flute, which each has like a story that goes with it. You know, um, So for time purposes, I'll just tell you about the drone flute.
Mm.
And when they heard the drone flute, we had historically we had the drone flute. Flutes were made out of ceramic. Flutes were made of different things, and all the people of the continent had different types of flute. The particular story that goes with this kind of flute here, we have two voices in one, as it tells about the people that lived in teepees. Now, we lived in long houses and big houses over here, wigwams and long houses.
Right.
But all natives traveled, and they knew about all things. It wasn't like people just stayed in their area, and people came down. As you know, the Jalagi came from up north. They came down. They went down to Mexico, and all different tribes went to different places. Some people on Long Island, the Algonquin people stayed there, but people traveled through. There was nothing unusual. This is a story about this flute where they had the teepees, and they moved. They followed the buffalo, the hunt. And basically a man who had a wife and daughters, they mysteriously got sick. And one by one, they passed away.
Mm.
And the man was so distraught that at night, when the sundown, everybody would be going into the tents to have dinner, and they would tell stories and play music. He was so distraught that he would just go into his tent and his teepee, and he would cry and moan the whole night long.
Mm.
So he was seeing that this would disturb all the relations. So he started moving his teepee further and further from the village. And the elders came, and they were concerned that he would lose his spirit because he was moaning so much and grieving so much. So they developed this flute so that he could put his sorrow into the flute. And that way he would free himself up so that he could still exist and recognize that he had such sorrow, but the sorrow could be turned into the music of the flute. So that's where, a story that I have that comes with this, because it has two voices.
Mm.
One voice, and another voice.
Mm.
So that's one of the stories, that we have. And we have a history, and, a lot of people told stories, but we pass down our stories and our histories through the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they were personal, sometimes they were how nature interacted with us, but there were always ways that we could take and pass on the word, and the things that we've done. So,
Right. Wow. Oh man, that's it that it just soothes. It just soothes the soul. It's just listening to it, man. It just takes you somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And that also goes into the other part of, so I am Chief Reggie Herb Dancer, or Dancers with Medicine, because the words are changed around. And I'm a Turkey Clan Chief. I also am a medicine man. And that's a whole another thing, but the subject of it, where we had medicine and we had knowledge that they didn't recognize. And some of them recognize it, and some of the Europeans took advantage of it. Of course, we didn't get anything from it. And I think everybody has taken some Native American medicine. We call it grandmother white willow bark.
Mm.
I think people call it salicylic acid or aspirin.
Mm.
Aspirin comes from a businessman that came over here and saw that when the natives were out in the field, they would go and they would take this bark and they make a tea out of it and they drink it. Right? Then he realized that when they had pain, they take and drink this tea there. And they asked, he asked them about it, and they said, well, it's grandmother white willow bark. So he took the white willow bark and he brought it back to his bosses, his people in England. And they took and they broke it down and they made it into a powder. They put it through a chemical process and they made it into a powder. And then they put a big B on the pill. Some of you might have heard about it, called bear aspirin.
Uh-huh.
So that was many of the things, like valerian.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Catnip.
Yep, catnip.
There's a whole list of like herbs and natural things that we did. And if I had mentioned it, one of my friends is a doctor and he went to school in Canada. I went to school in Montreal too, but he went to school in Canada. And they had to read the writings of the Jesuit priests. And in the writings, they mentioned how the Native Americans that had stiff muscles, how you have a pain in your shoulder or your back and just working too hard, that they would take the porcupine quills and they take the barb off the end of it. We know how to work with that because we made jewelry out of porcupine quill, like earrings, stuff like that. And they take the barb off the end of it, and he would see them sticking these natural sharp needles into big muscle masses and then massaging and moving the bodies around. So that it was done, of course, he was able to see it, so it was after first contact, but they had been doing it for a number of years before they had televisions and before they had contact with Asia, direct contact with Asia like we do now.
Mm-hmm.
So one might say, oh, they were doing acupuncture.
Yep.
And just to take and say that, knowledge, once it's put out there, it's put out there for everyone. The other Reggie, who you'll probably talk to one time, was Sensei Reggie.
Uh-oh.
Shiatsu Sensei at the Swedish Institute. I had mentioned this to some of my students during the break. They found out my weakness is if you took and got Sensei a cup of coffee and brought him something little to eat, while we were going on a lunch break, you could persuade him to take and stay into the classroom and tell you all the stuff that wasn't in the book.
Mm.
So I told my students, about that. I said, oh, like we did acupuncture. And then one of the students said, I have something for you. And she was African. She was from South Africa. And she came in the next day and she had a porcupine, because porcupines are all over the place, but the species changes, you know what I mean? But they're the same relatives, porcupine. She had a quill that was thicker and harder, and she showed me a picture, the porcupine in the areas that they were bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said the Africans, after they ran and ran and ran and ran and had pain, they would rub something on, and then they would stick this into the muscle and then move the muscle around.
Mm.
Sounds like acupuncture to me, right?
Seems like acupuncture, yeah. Wow. Mm.
So people are people. Not taking anything from anyone, just saying that since we're all related, and all the indigenous people know that we are all related,
mm-hmm.
that if one can think of something, then how come another group of people can't think of the same thing?
Mm. Right. Exactly.
And if you don't believe it, how about electricity and Tesla?
Mm. True.
Once the idea is put out there into the universe, all of us can tap into it because, as some people say, Maki Oyashi, We are all related.
That's it.
We're
That's
all
it.
related.
Now, you just recently, you were telling me you had a wonderful experience.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Mm. Well, this time of year, there's a whole story that goes with this. But the Matinecock, we just celebrated our Nanawa. And there's a story and everything. It's a harvest. It's the harvest. The harvest, direct translation for us, for Nanawa means the harvest is brown, the harvest is ripe. Okay, so it's harvest ceremony. Um, but there again, if we did it, then all of our cousins did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's something that was done and done and done and done. And uh, in the old days, it was a different type of a setup. You knew that the ceremonies came with respect to the moon and the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and so we would have it. So then that the Shinnecock would have it. Well, the same people. You know that the Montaukets would have it. And then that the Canarsies would have it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All the Algonquin people would have this all the way to the Wampanoags,
Mm-hmm.
right? Would have that. A little inside thing, the elders were saying, yeah, what would happen is sometimes there'd be a little time delay because of where you are.
Uh-huh.
And often the families would go to one harvest, one Nanawa, the harvest is brown. And that's a whole story I'd love to tell you sometime. And then, like, next week, another tribe is having it.
Mm. Now, Chief, unfortunately, they're giving us the signal to
Uh-uh.
wrap it up. So we'll have you come back. Do you mind?
I don't mind. And there's something else that you might be interested in. I don't know if you can see this, but I was in a photo shoot or a book and a photo shoot that came. It says, African Native Americans, we are still here.
That's the name of the book.
Yeah. Well, that was the
Okay.
name of a photo shoot. There was actually a photo shoot, and then there were books about that. We're still here. And it has
Okay.
pictures of Ramapo, Winterflower, Rainmaker. Uh,
They're
I'm gonna use.
giving us the signal. So we'll get into it when you come back.
That's a
Okay.
whole nother thing. Not to mention lost souls, lost spirits. The story of our tribe.
Okay. So I'm sorry, viewers. We'll have to continue the next time. Do the dog on eat.
Don't and as we say.